Hello and welcome to Hello Governor, the podcast. As always, I am Abdullah, and my guest today is, introduce yourself, good sir.
Hey guys, my name is Sean Letourneau, voice actor from DFW, good old Tejas, good Texas. Anime, commercials, video games. Just a dude who somehow gets paid to talk into a microphone.
Is that how you pronounce your last name? Because when I looked at it, I'm like, okay, how is it pronounced? Because I am,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's another one of those cases where it's spelt a certain way, but it's not pronounced the way it's spelt.
yeah, it's unbelievably French. So there's like six vowels for no reason, um, and you pronounce none of them the way you're supposed to. So it's Letourneau. But if you're really pretentious, you'd be like, Letourneau, super French. Nobody does that. Like my dad was from Kansas, so nobody says it that way. But yeah, Letourneau is how we do it. Like can't tell you how many times I get credited on something and they're writing my name and they're like, did I spell that right? Is that right? Oh my god, that looks that looks good.
How many times has it been misspelt, and how many times has it been mispronounced? I'm kind of curious.
Uh, People usually don't even try to pronounce it. Usually, like they just submit and just go like, "How do you say your last name, by the way?" So mispronounced not too many times. Spelled, people usually are pretty good at spelling it, but or they'll capitalize the T a lot, almost like how you capitalize the D in like McDonald. Um, but even then, I mean, I feel like I'm like, you know what? That's close enough. We'll take it. So thankfully, like not too much. I think there's been like one time where something got through a project. I don't even remember what it was. And I saw the credits and my name was spelled wrong and I was like, "Oh, ooh." But usually not too much, thankfully. I think people will try to be respectful. People are usually pretty careful about it, so.
Nothing I love more whenever I'm looking at a piece of credits and I realize that an actor's name has been misspelt, and it's like, oh, that must suck for that actor because they're like, oh, I'm excited, I'm in this thing, and then they look at it and it's like, huh, it still says my name, but it's misspelt.
Yeah, it's like you're like ear to ear with excitement. See the credits for like, wow, I did that. I'm in it. And then yeah, your name is just butchered on the board and you're like, "Oh, okay. Damn." And then yeah, it's um it's kind of awkward too cuz it's not like you're going to like A, it's probably too late to change it, and then B, it's most of the time it's not like you're going to even reach out and be like, "Hey guys, you spelled my name wrong." I feel like a lot of times, maybe, I mean, speaking for myself, just feel like lucky enough to even be in something. And so you're always a little like cautious to, I guess, stand up for yourself or like demand yourself. Like, can you guys change that? Depending on the R, they might. But like, I feel like a lot of times they'd be like, nope, it's too late. You're like, oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
It still says Letourneau, and Letourneau is spelt wrong.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that was close. I appreciate the effort. But um, I feel like it's unique enough to where people will be like, I know who that is. I mean, hopefully it'd be nice too. I mean, maybe you get to a point in notoriety where people are like, they spelled his name wrong, but I know who that is. Um, it's funny too. I used to really not like my last name because of that reason. It was, really, it's long and it's spelled weird, and I didn't even really like the sound of it because I think you grow up with your own last name, you don't choose it, and you don't really think anything of it. You always think like, whatever. But people have told me before, like, that's got a good sound to it, or like, you've got a cool last name. And I'm like, really? I never thought of it that way. But apparently, Sean Letourneau sounds good to some people, which I guess I'm glad because I'm in too deep to change it now, and so um, here we are. I guess I lucked out.
Plus, like having a unique last name means that you're first on the Google search, so you don't get confused with anybody else. So that's awesome.
100%. 100%. There's a lot of Laternos though. It's an old name, it's like an old French name. But let's here. You know what? I'm at a computer just for the sake of fun. If I type in just my last name, I don't think I come up. Yeah. There's a few unfortunate things. So there's a Letourneau University, and it's actually in Texas. It's in Longview, Texas. So I've had people think that like my dad owns a university or something, and that is not the case. I have no idea who that guy is. And then there's also a really famous case. I don't even know if I should talk about this, but there's a girl called Mary Kay Letourneau who there's like a documentary about her because she like had an affair with one of her students, and then they got married, I'm pretty sure, and they have like a family. It's really weird. And so I think I've I've pushed up into Google results enough to where that's not the first thing people talk about. But when I was starting my career, I'd be like, "Oh, my name's Letourneau," and they're like, "Are you related to Mary Kay Letourneau?" And I'm like, "No, no, God, no, I swear." Um, so we're gonna try and beat them out. So we just have the nice pristine Letourneau name restored to its glory. Um, but yeah, it's nice that it's unique.
Yeah, I mean, because like here's the thing, whenever I'm looking up someone on Google, I want to make sure that I'm looking up the right person and not, someone else because I sometimes people have similar names and I end up contacting the wrong person and it becomes awkward and it's like, "Oh, okay, ignore me. I confused you with someone else."
Yeah, um, there was a couple of Sean Letourneaus that would show up on the Google images, and people thought it was me for a little while, and it was kind of weird. But now, yeah, again, now I think thankfully I'm at a point where like if you Google, especially if you Google my like full name, I don't think you're gonna get anything except my ugly mug. So we've gotten to that point, but thankfully that doesn't happen anymore. But I've done that. I've like looked up somebody's name before meeting them, like an actor, and I had there were different images of different people, and I had no idea who they were, and I saw them in person, and I was like, oh, whoops, like that's I was looking at the wrong dude. So I know what you mean.
Because it happened, I think, way back in 2020 when I tried contacting a certain voice actor and he had not started out his career. He just like gotten a couple credits. And because his
Mm-hmm.
name is like because he had not his line of work wasn't what do you call it? It wasn't as noticeable as it is now. Google
Mm-hmm.
confused him with a professor, and I'm like, yeah, this ain't the guy.
It's like some 60-year-old dude with glasses.
It's like that's not the guy. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
It's funny.
you- you're looking for someone who did a voice on an anime, and then you get like a professor, and it's like, yeah, no way, no freaking way, is this the same guy?
Or you're just sitting there like, well, I didn't know he teached on the side. That's so cool. Good for him.
Well, to be fair, Piccolo's Japanese say was also a headmaster, so that I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, I
Good
didn't
for
know.
him.
That's dope. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people that do stuff on the side too, on top of this career. I mean, sometimes jobs are few and far between, and you got the time. So, um, I don't know. Some people though, I know some people that do this, and then they have like day jobs, and I'm like, I don't know how you can manage. I feel like it's a lot. I mean, it takes a lot of dedication just to do this already, a lot of energy and time. And so props to them. But I think it's funny sometimes looking up somebody's name and like their credits do show up, but then also you see them on like LinkedIn, and then that's like they're like assistant department manager at JC Penney. You're like, oh, okay, like find their manager or something like that. It's weird.
Oh, it's especially sad if you're like in the Dallas Fort Worth area and you do a lot of anime and you look them up on LinkedIn and it lists like all the other jobs that they have and it's like, oh boy, that is kind of sad, but okay, got to pay the bills.
Yeah, I mean, more power to them. Mine, I don't even remember what my job history. I hate using LinkedIn. I just need to use it more. Apparently, it's a good tool to like find work and stuff, even for voiceover. But it's just like corporate Facebook. I don't understand that platform at all. So my LinkedIn has like nothing on it. I don't post on it. And then I think my job history is like, oh, he went to Collin College, and then he worked at like Starbucks, and that's it. And then I've definitely had more happen in my life than that, but I think that's all it says. It's like Starbucks, and then it's like voice actor, like big leap, um, which isn't entirely untrue. But I've done like a lot of the common like odd jobs that you would see like a starving artist, so to speak, do like, working in coffee shops, like serving tables, just anything where you can work either really late nights or like really early mornings, just so you can leave the early afternoons for, like the crossing your fingers, like, oh, I hope I get a gig someday and then I can go do that and I can still work and pay my bills and blah, 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 and make that transition. And thankfully, I got to make that transition about like 2 or 3 years ago.
So, what made you want to get into voiceover, and was anime something you wanted to specifically pursue, or just like anything? It was just like in voiceover in general, and anime was just something that you happened to stumble across.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I definitely always thought about doing anime. It wasn't like the reason I wanted to do voiceover, but I was homeschooled, and I went to a local community theater and like this like homeschool co-op thing on Fridays, and they had a theater program, and I was in middle school, and I didn't even want to do it, and my mom wanted me to socialize more because I was kind of just I wasn't introverted, super introverted, but I was definitely shy in school, and I didn't have a ton of friends. Um, and so she threw me in like a musical theater class, and I didn't love it. I like musical theater now. I still don't really have an interest in performing in musical theater, but I have a lot of respect for it. And then I made some friends in that theater class, and I started having fun. And I always liked like playing characters or like doing funny voices. But as I got older and time went on, I started to really enjoy theater and like storytelling. And by high school, I'm getting ready to graduate, and I'm starting to get like cast and like leads in musicals and stuff. And I was like, I really want to do this like as my job. That'd be awesome. But I didn't want to move out of Texas. And I know how risky it is to like try and do on camera acting and do all this crazy stuff. And I was like, how do I do this without like drastically altering my entire life? And then I already knew about some voice actors. Like I really liked Matthew Mercer and Troy Baker and Laura Bailey and all these big ones. And then Critical Role came out, which is the Dungeons and Dragons podcast with voice actors. And it kind of like solidified in my mind, like, oh yeah, voice acting is like a career. That's like a job that people have. And I looked into it, and then it's like, oh, all like the major anime studios are in DFW. And it's like the stars kind of aligned. And I was like, I think I want to pursue that because I really like just storytelling. I like art. I just love music and like drawing and painting and like film and cartoons and all that stuff. And so I think it was more just like I wanted to be a voice actor because I could stay in Texas, and I could also be in the projects that like I want to be in. Like I love anime, I love cartoons, I love video games, and I just think it's so cool because it's a lot more of a free form medium. The characters I've played are things that like I would not be able to play in person on camera. I only look a certain way, but it doesn't necessarily matter what your stature is or whatever when you're a voice actor. And I thought that was super cool. So that's one of the main reasons I pursued it. That was the first jump start. As far as like, did I do it just for anime? I mean, I just any project that I think is cool or calls my name, I would love to be in. Like I've been in a couple of games. Anime is cool. I'll do commercials every now and then. I've learned to find the fun in those and love those, even though it's definitely a lot more like a job when you're doing commercials. But yeah, I think anime is something I just happily fell into. Like I definitely watched it growing up, but to me, it wasn't because it's anime. It's just an animated series. Like it's just a show. It's just a story, just a way to tell a story. And I just like storytelling. So I feel very lucky to be in the projects that I'm in now, because growing up, I would like watch, Naruto or even like Pokemon. And I'd be like, it'd be so cool to like be those people in that show. And now I get to do it. So, but just, yeah, any good story. I just want to be a part of a good story.
And how did you take to dubbing? Was it easy or was it hard?
So much harder than I thought it would be. This is something you probably hear this a lot, considering that you talk to a lot of voice actors. But like everybody knows that there's a challenge to it. But I think because there's a lot of dub and sub, talk and debate. It's been there since like the dawn of time. And I think the amount of respect I got for English dubs now is so much higher now that I've actually had to work on dubs and the environment. Like I've worked on projects where it's you just have a script and it's not animated yet and you can read it and perform the line however you want and it's so freeing. And then you go in to do an episode of an anime and it's like you have so many ideas on what you want to do with a line and sometimes you do it and it sounds so good and the director's like, yeah, that was awesome. It's like, but we just can't do that. You have to match these flaps. And it's a juggling act for sure of like of trying to get the timing right, trying to match the performance that's already on screen with the character's like face and the animation, but also trying to like make it yours at the same time and still like performing well. It's just juggling so many things. So it's definitely harder than I thought it would be.
And when you're dubbing, do you look at the script or screen?
Um, hmm. Honestly, the easiest way I've found to tackle it, where I've gotten jumbled up less, unless it's like a fight scene and you're doing like efforts and you're throwing punches and screaming and grunting and jumping. I would watch the screen for that because obviously there's no words to be spoken. You're just trying to kind of match to picture what's happening to your character. But when it's a spoken line, you'll preview it in the Japanese to kind of see what their timing is. And I think the biggest thing is to not even like pay too close attention to the mouth flaps, but how long they're speaking and like where the breaks and pauses are in their speech, almost the audio of it. So I'll watch the screen during the preview, but then during the take, I'll just look at the script and then you just try to match the timing of the audio of their voice. And then if I find that helps match it up best. Because I used to try to look when I first started, kind of looking between the screen and the script, and then you end up just kind of like stumbling your words and jumbling because you're like distracting yourself and you're not like looking at the words you're supposed to be saying. And it can get confusing. So I think I look at the script most of the time.
And because you guys are doing simul dubs and the Japanese episodes are out earlier than the dub, do you watch the Japanese first to get a handle on where your character is to get to or do you go in blind?
There's been a few rare scenarios recently where like we have like a same day dub, and so I have to go in blind because we're recording it before the episode's even available in Japanese. But they have it obviously at the studio. So there's those rare scenarios where I have to go in blind. But yeah, if I have it like a normal simuldub where it's sort of like a week stagger, I always try if I can to watch the scenes that I'm in the Japanese first, to get a grasp of it. Just so I can kind of prepare myself and be like, okay, that's what we're getting into tomorrow or on Wednesday or whatever it is. Yeah. The only struggle with it sometimes is I've had moments where I really, really care and really like a character I'm playing. Like Set from Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts was one of those I really love playing. And I would always watch the episode start to finish in Japanese every week. And then sometimes the tragedy is I got so many ideas. I'm like, oh, I know how I want to read that line this way so bad. And then you go in the studio, and you think it was going to work, and then you're performing it the way you thought you were going to perform it, and then you realize like it's actually not going to fit, and you got to change something. And then sometimes you get too much in your head. So I've gotten better about that. But yeah, I try to always do my homework if I can.
And do you like audition for for the stuff you're in, or is it just like a general like call in?
A lot of it is General Collins, which is like a culture I did not expect when I first started. So it's a lot about like, they have these things called general auditions where you submit to their audition roster essentially. And it's like vocal archetypes, right? So like the low sultry villain or like male young protagonist or whatever. And they're kind of generic lines just to hear your like vocal types. and your performance, and they genuinely will cast you on those. We do get to audition for a lot of the shows, though, or a decent amount of them, I should say. If there's time, there's not too much crunch time between the casting and the production of the show, but a lot of it, yeah, is Collins, which is another element of like this director just trusts you and gives you that role, and so you feel very lucky, and you go in there and you try to do it justice. Um, I think, which is why it's important to get really good at like having a good range and getting really good at just like line reads, like walking in there and it's like, all right, make this character right now. And obviously it's a collaborative process. Like the director will talk you through it and they'll help you, and they chose you for a reason. So just give it your all. But yeah, a lot of it's just getting called in. There's a couple shows though where it does feel really good because you audition for a specific character and then you get that character. Like all the roles are amazing and are rewarding, but there's definitely an element of gratitude when you read for a character and you feel like you've created something and you send it to a director, and then, you know, out of like hundreds of people or whatever, they chose you. So those feel a little extra good, but a majority of them are Collins.
And out of all the characters you've voiced, which one would you say was the toughest?
Oh, hmm. Ooh. I mean, I said Set. Maybe Set. Probably. Yeah, probably Set from Sacrificial Princess. So there's this. He talks very eloquently, and his vocabulary is very, regal, and he's very articulate. And that was fun, but kind of challenging with the whole dubbing process. And there is this sort of three-stage villain element of like, in the very beginning, let's have him sound more forthright and trusting so people don't suspect that he's the villain, because there's sort of a red herring in that show. And then halfway through it, we got like more dark and sinister. And then by the end of it, he kind of sounds like a completely different character in some instances because he's showing his true colors. And so I think the vocal type and the way I performed it changed as the episodes went on, and that was challenging, I think. And he's like a troubled character. There's a lot going on in his head. I thought it was really fun. Like, it was very awesome. It was fun seeing different stages of him. And at the very end of the show, he's just this basically just a broken child having a tantrum. Whereas the very first episode, he's this incredibly put together royal, high judge who's got everything in control. And so I think that evolution was very challenging. I bring him up a lot. Like, I talk about him a lot, but I really love that character. Like, I love that archetype of character. Like, Handsome Jack from Borderlands is an example I give a lot to, where he's, always sly and cocky and arrogant, and he seems so in control. And the second that he loses that control, like, the facade of the confidence falls off, and he's just a madman. I love that stuff. So probably that character.
It's interesting you bring up Handsome Jack because he's voiced by Damon Clark, and as we know, Damon Clark is most famous for voicing Cell in Dragon Ball. And ironically enough, Cell's character arc is similar to Handsome Jack in that, when he starts out, he's very like slimy and sleazy, and but when he gets to his perfect form, he becomes more cocky and confident. But then towards the end, when he starts to realize like, oh, the towards the end where his plans get thwarted, he becomes more frustrated, and when he reaches like his full power, he becomes like unhinged. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I guess you could call it a trope. I just enjoy it because I feel like it's kind of a reflection of real life in a way. There's people who have bad intentions, who are selfish, and they have a mask. Everyone wears a mask, and obviously it feels good to see the villain lose, but seeing the different stages of their personality, of like when they are getting what they want and when they don't get what they want, and they kind of show their true colors, like who they really are, and a lot of the times It's usually like a tragic story or something, but a lot of times the villain is broken. It's a broken person. They're deeply troubled, um, and they're almost pathetic, like because they lose that temper and they become so unhinged. You can see how almost pitiful they are, and I always find that really fun to watch. I love that.
How do you find the humanity when you're playing a bad guy, or how do you sympathize with their views?
Well, that's a great question. Um, I think, well, for one part of it, there's the theatrics of it. Obviously, it's not real, and there's a part of me that thinks it's just fun to be the devil's advocate, the bad person, because somebody has to be the antagonist. So there's that element to it that justifies the performance and the behavior. But I think the main thing is that, well, there's two things. It's like one, everybody has some evil in them, I think, or have had moments in their life where they've had negative emotions. They've had rage, um, or they want revenge, or whatever. And so there's like a substitution method there where I might not agree whatsoever with this character and their motives, but I, as Sean, have had situations where it's like I am angry and I know, or I believe that I know that like I'm in the right. And so I think just infusing that in there and seeing them as people in that regard helps. Um, and I completely forgot what the second thing I was going to say was. But yeah, I don't know, because there's been some characters, like I played a guy called Wild Dog in Vinland Saga who did some pretty abhorrent stuff. There's a really, really, really bad scene. And that was actually really hard for me to do. But I think there's a point when you're an actor and you're performing something and your character is doing something you would never do, or it might be even something you can't even sympathize with. But there's a point of like, you have to just slip into the skin of the character and be like, okay, I'm this person. What do, in this scene, in the scenario, is like, what do I want? What do I believe? Like, what is the goal of me saying this? And then just answering those questions and like running with that scenario. Um, so I think that helps. And obviously, one of the biggest things that helps you sleep at night is if you're playing a villain, you know that at least they're going to get their comeuppance at some point. And the more horrible they are in your performance, like if you make people hate you with your performance, you're actually doing the right thing, because people should hate that villain if they're a bad person. So I think it's a net gain for the world. But yeah, that's a good question.
And how did you get involved in One Piece?
So I think this is my theory, because there's the puppet masters behind the scenes. I have no idea what goes on in their heads, but a long time ago, before I even was doing anime, I Emily Fajardo, who's a great actress and now director, had an acting roster that she opened up. You send your email and your demos and whatever and your info, and she might send you auditions. And then she was just starting to kind of toy with directing some shows at Crunchyroll. And there's a show, My Dress Up Darling, which is a wonderful show, a beautiful show. And I guess I passed and got into her casting roster, her personal one she had for a second. And I got to audition for the main character. I didn't get it. But this is one of those things with acting where just because you didn't get it doesn't mean that you didn't do a good job. They might have remembered you. You'll never know, because it's not like they're going to email you and be like, "Hey, I remember you," But there's that element. And then later down the line, I got called into Crunchyroll and I worked on Blue Lock with Jonathan Rigg. So I was in their acting roster in their system, and I think maybe Emily must have seen me on a casting list somewhere at Crunchyroll, and it's like, oh, he's doing anime here now. And maybe I imagine she got reminded that I'm, in the area. And then this character, Tsunagoro, needed a voice, and she probably, he's not like super slimy, but he's definitely almost like a snake-like looking character, and he's part of like a gang. And I think I just had the vocal archetype that befit that character, and I was lucky enough for her to think about me and offer me the role. So, but that was like, I think that was like a year or so in the making of just coincidentally doing things that maybe got me noticed, and then I got brought in, and I'm very, very grateful to be a part of that show. It's like it's one of those where even people who don't really watch anime or keep up with a lot of that stuff, they're always like, "Oh, what are you in?" And if I say like, "Oh, I'm in this, I'm in that," and then I go, "I'm in One Piece," I don't think I've ever met somebody who's like, "Oh, you're in One Piece." Like no one's ever not said that. Like I think everyone recognizes that, and so that's a real blessing. It's awesome. But that's my theory as to how I got in. At the end of the day, I just got an email and I said yes. So
And were you familiar with the series beforehand, or was it one of those cases where you got the role and you're like, I want to learn everything I want to know about the series, as I go along, or are you a fan from day one?
I knew about One Piece. I watched a little bit of it on TV when I was younger, when it was airing like 1 in the morning. Um, but I still don't even know if I could now. I've watched a lot of videos to like catch up on lore, but it's so daunting. I've watched the whole Wano arc because that's where my character is, and I wanted to be well informed. And I know a lot of, it matters to a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people that have grown up on the show. Um, so I knew about it. I've watched some of it. And then obviously once I got the role, I delved a little deeper. Um, but I haven't sat down and with full attention watched all like, God, what is it? Like almost like it's like 1,100 episodes now, or it's something insane. So, but of course, I don't think I know anyone who does this work and is not like somewhat familiar with One Piece. I mean, it's iconic. I mean, I see people walking around and they've got like just One Piece tattoos just all the time. It's huge. So I'm pretty familiar with it.
I mean, look, man, I will never actually ever watch the entire series because it is a daunting task. But I will admire anybody who has the patience and time to dedicate to trying at least, because it's a
Yeah.
because it's daunting. I don't know how anybody keeps up with it. I'm just like, good on you. If you can keep up with it, good on you. But look, I said this before many times, but I tried watching one of the arcs and I found out it was like 50 episodes, and I'm just like, no, no.
Yeah. Every time somebody says, like, oh, I started watching One Piece, it's like the reaction is always like, dude, good luck. Like, wishing you like, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Wishing you the best. Because, yeah, it's like a commitment. It's a huge commitment. I can understand. I think I can, maybe I'll do this one day. I can see people more reasonably like reading all of it, reading the manga. Because I feel like you can just consume it faster, and maybe like lay in bed and like read a few chapters or whatever, and then whatever, and just chip away at it. But it's like 1,100 episodes, 24 minutes. That's so many hours of the show. It's just so much. It's just intimidating. I think that's the main thing about it. Is it's just very, very intimidating.
To put this in perspective, The Simpsons has been going on for 35 seasons, and there are still more One Piece episodes than there are Simpsons episodes. So keep that in mind.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, and the One Piece anime started out in 1999, so you know.
That's when I was born. Oh my gosh.
So I was like 9 years old when it aired, and I'm like 30, 34 now. So it's crazy. Crazy to me that
And
it's
that's what
still
I mean. Though.
going.
That's what's so cool. That's what's so cool though is there's some people that it's like people love it, and it's awesome. It is totally awesome. It's an awesome show, super fun characters, and there's always so much going on. Like every time I see a new episode, or I'll come in and I'll do like like background characters and stuff for another episode, just like fill in some pirates or something like that. And it's like there's just so much activity. Like there's always these great events happening. Like they still find a way to make it really interesting every time. But like people, like you're saying, it's like This has been with them their entire life. I mean, it's kind of like me and Pokemon. Like, I love Pokemon. I grew up on Pokemon. It's been there since I was a freaking newborn baby. So, like, I have so much respect for people who keep up with the show, and I think it's awesome that it's like a testament to like a tale of our generation. I feel like it'll always be like monumental.
Yeah, but with Pokemon, I feel like with people like me who grew up with the original Pokemon, we have a cutoff point. You know, when it once it stopped being about once I think like Ash and what not Ash Brock left, I think that was the cutoff point for a lot of people. Once Brock and Misty left, I think that was the big cutoff point for a lot of people my age. So we have that
Hmm.
cutoff point. We weren't like sitting here watching Pokemon as it went on because like there was no need to. Like it was just one of those things where, oh, it's still going. Oh, that's whatever. I mean, it's like The Simpsons. It's like it's one of those shows that sure, like I'll maybe watch it when it's on or like if I need some background noise or whatever, but I don't like
Right.
go out of my way to like watch modern Simpsons. I'll always like rewatch classic Simpsons, but I will never like go out of my way to watch like modern Simpsons. Same thing with like a Pokemon. Like I mean, I'll rewatch like a couple of the old episodes because I love the classic Pokemon series. But like in any of the newer stuff, it's like, eh, it's like,
I know
eh.
what you mean. That's totally true. That's totally true. The games, though, I'll always tear up a Pokemon game. I don't care what anybody says.
I mean, I get because again, like I feel like with the games, like I think they're much more accessible for people, like because a lot of people have more access to the games than they do anime because like who has time for watching an entire series on like Netflix or whatever. It's like but everyone's
Hmm.
gonna have time to play like the newest Pokemon game on the Switch or whatever because like it's much more
Hmm.
accessible to them. I feel like with Pokemon, I feel like with the games you're getting a lot more than you would by just
Hmm.
watching the TV show. And I know I'm gonna sound like an old fart when I say this, but I do think that people nowadays don't have high attention spans, like
Hundred percent.
because I feel like it's crazy to me that I've met people that struggle to just watch like a series from start to finish when I can do that.
Yeah.
It's like it's like I can do that, but then I realize, oh no, wait, I grew up watching a lot of television as a kid and teenager because we didn't have streaming. That was the only way you could watch like a lot of these shows. But with people nowadays, and the content is already there for them from the get go, and because like they have so many options they just don't have the time. They don't have the time or attention span to keep up with this stuff. That's why like everyone's like, oh, movies are too long, and now they're like going back to like an hour and something minutes because they know that the general public doesn't have that high of an attention span to watching a movie for 2 hours. So it's just I don't know. Like it's a weird world we're living in, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's just always, like you're saying, because there's more accessibility. I think people are just struggle with like there's always a shiny new thing. So if there's ever like a lull in your interest in something, you can just hop over and do like the next thing. Whereas, especially when there was cable television, I mean, you had to show up in front of your TV at a specific time slot and watch it. And even if it was like, oh, I'm not huge on this episode, and you're changing the channels, it's like that might be the only thing you're interested in watching at all at that time on TV that's like currently on any channel. So yeah, it's totally different. Or like I'm a victim of that too. Not a victim, or like I'm guilty of this too, I should say. Of like now I feel like I'll play a game or or vice versa, I'll watch something and I feel like I always have another piece of media in front of me. Like I'll watch a show while playing a game, or I'll play a game and like watch a show at the same time. Like I just can't, sometimes I don't sit down and just like pay attention to the one thing and do it. Um so even I'm guilty of that now because it's just so easy. It's just so easy to just drown the noise out and just consume as much media as you can, like in one sitting, without really paying attention to anything. If it's a movie, though, I don't do that. Like if it's a movie or if I'm watching like an anime series or something, I try to always sit down and focus, especially if it's anime. Like I'll watch a lot of dubbed anime now, and I mean I did before, but more than I did before because I'm almost treating it like not work, but like I want to hear the performances of my peers because I feel like there's a lot to learn from it. Same with like watching films or even like in games. If there's a performance in a game, it's like that's inspiration. It's the same thing with like a musician um, who's trying to write new music. Most likely is probably going to sit around and listen to a lot of music, and you try and draw inspiration from other people. So
No, man, I'm guilty of that as well. Like I am terrible when it comes to opening multiple tabs. Like, cause I look at the amount of tabs I open and it's like, Christ, why, when did I open this and why did I open this?
yeah, and why won't I close it?
It's like, what is this? Oh, what is this YouTube video that I just stopped watching? That I just like stopped
Yeah,
watching after like 5 minutes?
dude, I have one right now. That's literally I have a tab where it's like 28 out of 37 minutes. And I haven't finished it yet. It's just sitting there. I literally have that all open on my Chrome tab right now.
So, I mean, you mentioned like watching a lot of dubbed anime. Like, did you watch a lot of, dubbed anime first and then you watch subbed, or did you, was it just like, do you have a personal preference, or, does it not make a difference to you?
Yeah, well, I guess it doesn't really make a ton of a difference. I watched more dubbed growing up, and then it was only until I started to try and watch some shows that didn't even have a dub that I started watching the sub. And then it became like just like a coin flip, basically, if I watched it dubbed or not. Um, but I don't know if I really have a preference. The only preference I think I do have is I JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I have to watch subbed, except for season one. Part one, the dub is superior, just because I uh I really like Patrick Seitz uh in the first one as Dio, uh and I don't know. I just started watching part one in the dub, and it was like a core experience for me. But there's just something about hearing like the Japanese English hybrid pronunciation of like the stand names and stuff that I think just goes like so hard. Um, and I really like. But I think I almost always watch dub if I can, because there's a lot of really great performances that you can draw from both. Um, but again, especially now, I like use it as like inspiration. Like I'll hear somebody in the dub do something, and I'm like, God, that was so good. Like I need to. It almost makes me sit there and go like, I need to do better. Like I want to be like that. Like that was really good. Like I can't tell you how many times the My Hero Academia dub, like Justin Briner as Deku, as like made me cry. Like probably more times than it should. Um, so yeah, I think dub mostly, but it doesn't even. I was gonna say it doesn't matter, but it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's just I like both.
No, man, speaking as a fellow JoJo's Bizarre Adventure fan, like I have to watch it subbed because I want the correct stand names. I just cannot like, it's to me it's not JoJo unless you have the correct stand names. I'm sorry, like I get why they had to
Yeah, and
change.
it just sounds
Uh,
cool.
I mean, I get why they had to change a lot of stuff, but sometimes it's like, but it's cooler, hearing someone say a band name and it's a stand name and it's really cool. Like, come on, man,
Yeah, it's
like.
like Stando Bad Company. Yeah, it's like it goes hard.
Plus, I mean, come on, like I must have heard Dio's say you say Zawardo a million times, and I'm just like, I will never get tired of that. I will just never get
It's
tired.
yeah, it sounds so good. I like it can't be matched.
Plus, I mean, plus, like, Made in Heaven. Come on, man. That moment, like, everyone was waiting for it, and then when it happened, it's like, ah, yes, awesome.
I think another one that is really good though in the dub is Kellen Goff, and Part Five does a really good job. I mean, they all do a really good job, but I just mean he sounds particularly badass. Um, he's awesome too. He's like a main inspiration for me. Kellen Goff. He's an amazing actor. Um, and he's gotten some huge roles, well deserved, obviously. And he's got a really awesome voice because he can sound so like just like friendly guy next door, and it's like sort of like a mid to high sort of voice. And then his next role will be like the most low guttural, like monstrous kick ass sound ever. Where he's like Fiddlesticks from League of Legends. He's freaking Freddy Fazbear, which is like huge. He's awesome. So I will say I do like that. But
And speaking of voice actors, I know that you recently got cast in what do you call it? You were in Fairy Tale, and
Mhm.
and what's great about that dub is they got most of the original cast back. How did you get involved in that, and did imposter syndrome ever kick in by being in a project with as with as many of the original OG cast as you know? Like, did it ever kick in? Like,
I feel like it always kicks in. Yeah, I feel like anytime I get a really good role, I have this weird element of like the first session I'll record like maybe like the first episode where the character shows up. I'm like, yeah, I felt so good, I crushed it. And then the character's voice is set in stone and everything's done. And then I'll go and record like another episode. And then for whatever reason, my mind, by the second episode, I'm like, oh, I'm blowing it. I shouldn't be here. Like, I don't even know why they thought I could do this. I'm like, oh god, and I'm doing like fine. I'm doing the same as I did before, but it just definitely kicks in 100%. Um, and then how it happened was Chris George, who's such a cool dude, awesome dude. He's a director there at Crunchyroll. Just a great guy too. Um, I auditioned for Monster earlier this year, and I got the role. I booked the lead role, Gobrou or Opero. He has different names as he goes through stages, but I just say Gobrou because he's a goblin. And I booked it, and it was my first time working with Chris, and I couldn't believe it because that's like I feel like it was one of my first auditions I ever sent over to that guy, and then he gave me the main protagonist, and I was like, holy crap, I can't blow this. And we worked together really, really well. I think he just liked my performances and like what I did. Well, it was always fun in the booth with him. And then I guess on Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest, he got to direct that. And I think because I was playing a character for 12 episodes with him every week for a season, where I was playing like this lower voiced, kind of boomy, bigger dude, that when this character Skullion comes up in the Fairy Tale arc, he's like, "Oh, well, I just worked with this guy that did a good job on his first lead, and um, he can do that voice pretty well." And so he was like, "Hey, man, do you want to play Skullion in this little show called Fairy Tale?" I'm like, "I recognize that name. Sure." And I just got lucky enough to do it. But yeah, imposter syndrome for sure. I get it with like literally every role, and you just got to push through and just try to remind yourself, like, dude, they picked you for a reason. You're doing fine. Okay? You're doing fine. So, but I definitely got it.
it's like I gotta hand it to you because like coming in as a newcomer, you pretty much got it nailed down perfectly. Because the dub feels like a throwback to like that classic like Funimation like 2010s era dub, and it's kind of like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a fun throwback to that era, and I'm kind of like, yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to be nostalgic about, but I kind of a nostalgic for that era where it's like, yeah, I kind of miss when dub actors were given a little bit more leeway with these characters as opposed to now where everything has to be more grounded and nuanced, as they say.
Right. I think both are good. I think both are very fun. Um, I really like grounded performances. I actually think they're harder to do, um, but it depends on the show. I think Fairy Tale befits it perfectly. Same like One Piece. Not even like there's like a lot of moments in One Piece that are like really silly, and I'm going to say this, it's not a negative thing. I don't want people to think it's a negative context, but like it's very campy and it's like high energy. Or like same with like Dragon Ball and all this stuff that we grew up on, like all these classics. But I think the the energy of the performance sometimes, and that like campiness and the theater is like what makes it feel so much like anime. Like these are like these classic stories, or and it makes it fun. Like you're there to have fun. Like some of those shows, I think are just supposed to be fun. Not every show has to be this like like dark and gritty and violent um, storyline. It can be a little bit more fantastical and fun. So I think yeah, both are befitting. But yeah, it has been very fun to just like you're just playing this big villain, and it's he's just kind of your Saturday morning cartoon bad guy. So that's been awesome.
And do you watch any of the stuff you worked on, or can you not stand listening to yourself?
Both. I well, I can't like get into it and like if I'm in it, I'll watch shows. I always watch the shows I'm in. Maybe that makes me sound like a narcissist, but I want to see the finished product. You're working on this thing, and usually you work on it in like vacuum, where there's like you don't really get to see the full scene played back all the way afterward, and sometimes you're recording your lines before other actors have recorded their lines, so like it's like super silent and quiet when you're doing the takes and stuff like that. And so I always just want to see the finished product, see the fruits of your labor, so to speak, because it's like this huge collaborative thing where there's like an engineer and there's a director and there's like tons of writers and editors and actors, and you see the finished thing, you're like, whoa, this is like so cool. It's like a real, this is a show and I'm in it. Like that's a really cool feeling. Super surreal. But yeah, I definitely can't get like immersed because A, I already know what's gonna happen, and B, I'm like, dude, that's just me. So I don't know if I like hate the sound of my own voice. It depends on the character, but uh, like there are times where I'll watch back an episode I'm in. I'm like, you know what? I did a pretty good job. I think that's pretty all right. And then there's some where I'm like, oh god, shut up, dude. Like I don't like listening to myself. So it's a little bit of both. But yeah, I shamelessly watch the stuff that I'm in. Um, but it's mostly just to help like supplement the imposter syndrome of I don't know if like am I good enough to do this? And then I'll watch it back and it sounds better than I thought it did because I'm overthinking. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Actually, that's like a real show. That's me in it. So maybe not. I'm not so bad, you know.
So it's kind of a middle ground. It's not like you're not too hypercritical to the point where you can't watch yourself, but you're also not too in love with yourself that you can like not criticize yourself, basically.
Yeah, I try to not be. So I think it's really important when you're in any creative form or career or whatever to be like self-critical and to be self-aware, but also like okay, so you have to walk the line between being like humble and knowing that you're not all that. You can always do better, but also to give yourself credit when it's deserved. Because I find sometimes people lean too far into one side where they want to improve, but then they just end up being self-loathing, and they hear themselves back or they criticize themselves and they're like, oh, this sucks, that sucks, this is bad, or like, oh, like I wish I did this better. It's like, okay, but you also like focus on the things that you did do well or like that you think you are good at, you know, because you'll never improve if you don't admit that like you're bad at some things, but you're also probably never going to improve if you don't admit that you're good at some things, because then you won't know what needs to be improved, right? If you're like, oh, I just suck at everything, it's like, okay, well, that's not very productive. So yeah, I think I definitely like walk that line. Like I'll watch a show and I'll be like, I did a really good job in that episode, and then I'll watch a different show or a different episode and I'll be like, I could have done a little bit better on that, in hindsight. Um, but I think that's maybe a good thing. I think it's like as time goes on, if you look back on something you did as time goes on, and then you feel like, dude, I could do better now. Like I don't think I'm did very good right then. That probably means that you've improved. So it's usually a good thing if you're cringing at yourself a little bit. But yeah, definitely walk on a fine line.
No, I 100% agree with you because I think that it is important to, I mean, not be overtly critical of your work, but like understand your strengths and weaknesses, because otherwise how are you going to improve? Because even I, like when I'm hearing like newer talent come up, nowadays, I can tell who's green and who isn't, like cuz sometimes like you get someone new and the first couple episodes they're kind of green because they're like they don't really, they have an understanding of how it works, but they're still like struggling to find the character. Like they're trying to be like, oh, who is this character, and so on and so forth. But then like around like a couple episodes, 2 or 3 episodes in, they're like, oh, I finally get who the character is, and they become more confident in their work. I mean, it's the same thing with like the original
True.
Dragon Ball. It's the same thing with the original Dragon Ball dub. Like, you can say what you want about the quality of it now, but I feel like in the grand scheme of things, it's important because it's not only like one of the first introductions to English dubs for a lot of people, but I feel like if that show had not become a cultural phenomenon and those actors had not become like synonymous with those roles, then they would not have been called back to do Kai, where everyone had improved by then. There was like that huge gap between like the original Dragon Ball Z and Kai, and you could see the
Hmm.
actors you could see like a massive improvement between like OG Dragon Ball and Kai. You know, so if they had not been
Hmm.
called back, I feel like we would have missed out on a lot of great performances, because I feel like Chris Sabat, while he was great as Vegeta in the original Dragon Ball Z, he had perfected the role by the time they get to Kai, which is why I say, like, if you want to watch Dragon Ball Z dubbed, go watch Kai, because it cuts out all the filler, and the English actors are, pretty much like they've nailed down these characters. They have an understanding of these characters, and I don't think
Hmm.
that there's a single bad performance in that dub, to be quite honest.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think also just like in general, as time goes on, like people get a grasp of like how to do this, and not even just like acting, but like dubbing specifically. Like I definitely, I'd like to think I've gotten better than when I first started, um, and I feel like I've gotten more efficient too, as far as like getting a usable take that like fits the flaps and everything, and you kind of get into a rhythm. I mean, each character is different, and like you're saying, it's like sometimes it might take like an episode or two for you to sort of sink into it and be like, okay, I'm comfortable in the skin of this character now. Like I get how this character works and how they're thinking and how they feel and stuff like that. Um, but you just get better at just the process of dubbing. I think you just get the hang of it, and with that confidence, you definitely improve. But kind of like back to what we were saying before, it's like you're never going to get that confidence if you don't like stop beating yourself up. You got to pat yourself on the back a little bit. Um, like a big thing is that people are usually always scared of like messing up in front of directors. I think I've learned to like not really be nervous in front of directors anymore, because like they want you to succeed. They're the ones who chose you and put you in that booth to do that role. And if you make a mistake, that's perfect because the director is there to help you like fix it. It's I don't know, it's just like they want you to improve, they want you to succeed, and uh it's a very like loving environment. I feel it's a very judge-free environment. Um and sometimes people hear praise from directors and they're like, oh, it's not real, it's not real. It's like, why would they bother even casting you or praising you if they could just pick someone that you think is supposedly better than you? It's like, yeah, it's like you got to give yourself some credit, and then that confidence comes over time.
I mean, yeah, because if they didn't want you there, you wouldn't be there. Like they would have just cast
Right.
someone else if they wanted someone else. Like, sometimes like especially with some directors, sometimes they have an idea of who they want for the role, but that sometimes they'll be like, hey, I know who would be great for this role, but I want to give someone else the opportunity to see what they got, or so and so. It's
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's not a zero sum game is basically what I'm saying.
For sure. I had that happen to me with Set. I keep bringing up that character because I just love that character, but I probably I don't even think I don't know. I might be at liberty to say, but I won't drop any names or anything, but when I got cast, I was told, that I was like one of these two options. And I hadn't had a role like that before. This is probably one of the largest roles I had so far, and I've never played like a main villain or like antagonist or anything. And the choice was between me and then somebody who's been cast for stuff of that caliber like a lot more often. And the director kind of just made this choice of like, well, my audition was still really good in his eyes, and they're gracious enough to be like, you know what, like I'm going to take a risk. I want to take a risk on this person because it's like they might like it's something new, it's something different, like it's a different talent. Um, but they're like they did a good job. I think they did a good job, so I'm going to take a leap of faith and I want to see what they can do. And it's I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like I guess people will have a fear sometimes where if you do get that opportunity and you think you're blowing it and you don't do a good job, it's like, oh, they'll never call me back. It's like, maybe, but I doubt it.
I mean, it's like I think it's like very rare to like make a bad impression on someone these days, because I feel like as a director, you got to be like more open-minded with when it comes to people, because like because like again, like a lot of people are new, and sometimes like this is like your first as a director, like sometimes you got to understand like a lot of these actors are coming in to do anime for the first time, and it is your job as the director to like walk them through this, and
Hmm.
and you have to not let only like you have to the level of you have to have a level of trust is basically what I'm trying to say is like you have to have a level of trust in that
Completely, yeah.
you picked the right person for the role, and you know like I said before, like if they wanted someone else, they would have gotten someone else, but they heard your audition and they said, okay, I like that, I feel like he would be good, he would be a I like what this kid's got, let's give him a shot, basically.
Right. And as a performer, the director, it's like it's essentially it's their show. And as a performer, as an actor, you're saying to the director there's a level of trust that you're going to do a good job and they think you're right for the role. I think as an actor, it's your job too to trust the director that they are right, about you. Like they have a vision of what they want in this cast. And so it's like you need to have a little bit of faith and trust in them that like you are the right person for that role. And with newer actors too, like you're saying, newer talent, there's definitely an element because again, they want you to succeed. There's definitely an element for directors where when they use newer talent and they might give you like a bigger role or a more substantial role. I don't even know if they think this way. I would if I was a director, but there's almost this like not bragging right, but there's probably some pride of like if you're the director who's like the first person to give that newer actor that chance and then they do a really great job, you know? And it's like it's kind of like when somebody puts you on like a new band that nobody listens to really and everyone's like, "Oh man, this band's so good. Like how'd you discover this band?" And you're like, "Yeah, I have my ways." You have like this kind of sense of pride that you discovered something. I imagine that's probably what they would feel too. It's like there's even more of a motivation for them to be like, I want to give this person a chance because I think they're doing a good job, and it's like I could be the first person lucky enough to like give them that chance. Like I think a lot of them recognize that they're giving people opportunities. Like obviously it's a collaborative effort. Like you still have to be good enough to get the gig, but it is an opportunity, and so it's on you as well to trust that director that you are there for a reason.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think Caitlin Glass is the reason why like I admire her as a director, because like she is not only someone who is great at directing actors, but she's also makes a great job of like giving newer actors like prominent roles that you have never heard of, and then you're like, wow, this person's really good. Like, how did you discover them, you know?
Yeah, or like why have I not heard this person before? She's awesome. I've gotten to work with her a couple times, and she's very, very kind and generous, and she cares a lot about the projects that she's working on. Like the way she gives direction is great. Like you can tell that she's completely immersed in whatever she's working on, and she gives you as much info as she can possibly give you um, to make sure you're doing the best job you have. And she's just got a great attitude too. Like it's very fun and welcoming whenever you work together. Like I love her. She's awesome.
And but I think the important thing is that the biggest takeaway from this whole conversation I think I want people to have is that it is a collaborative effort. Like actors and directors have to trust each other, because if there is no trust, then the product isn't going to be very good. Or if one party does not care about delivering the best product that you can deliver, then it's not going to be good. It's a collaborative effort. It's not just like it's not a case of like someone walking in and being like, "Oh, I'm the best actor ever and I don't need direction," or like I'm the best director ever and I don't, I know how to handle this. No, it's like it's a collaborative effort. Like, you have to learn. It's a balancing act. You have to learn how to
Hmm.
balance out, out the acting and directing. Otherwise, the dub isn't going to be very good.
Yeah, people have to be on the same page, for sure. Because if they're not, you can hear it. You can hear it's going to create frustration or anxiety or uncertainty. And the worst thing you can do in any kind of like performative art is be uncertain, because you can hear it. Like the way to be convincing when you're performing something is being certain on how you're going to say it or perform it. You know what I mean? It's like if you're supposed to be really angry in a scene and you're screaming, but you're like unsure why you're screaming or how loud you should be screaming or whatever it is, you can hear like that hesitation in someone's voice. And then that's when someone recognizes, like, this isn't real. Like, that's an actor trying to say a word on a page and they're not sure how they should say it. Like, you can hear it. So, 100%. Yeah, you have to be on the same page.
And what was the best and worst piece of advice you've ever been given as an actor?
Hmm. I don't know if I have a worst, other than like maybe someone being sarcastic and being like, just say the words, bro. um, uh, but the best advice I ever had was probably just from a buddy of mine who's also a coach. His name's Tom Henry. It was like, what? Okay, so let's say there's like a line, and it's like get up, and it's this scene where it's like you're teary eyed, and this person's fell down and collapsed, and you're telling them get up, and then maybe it's like it's a situation where when you're saying get up, it's because they look weak and it's annoying you, or you don't want to see them as weak or something. But that's kind of skipping ahead. The advice was like, what's your line? What are you saying? I'm like, I was saying get up. He goes, why are you saying get up? And I was like, because I want them to get up. It's like, okay, but like, why do you care if they get up? And then the advice is basically think about like, what is the goal of what you're saying to this person? Like, what motivated you as a character to bother saying that? Because you don't have to say that. You don't have to say anything. Why did the character say that? And then it's like this analysis of like, okay, you're saying get up because, you're stronger in this scenario and you need to go somewhere. And then the character in front of you collapses and is breaking down and crying. And then you think that's pathetic. And so it annoys you. So the phrase get up is not me really caring if they stand up, but it's me saying like, stop being weak. And so then it changes from like, get up, telling them to get up, to be like, get up. And it's more like commanding. And it's like, you're just telling them like, suck it up, and then that changes the way you read the line. So I think that's some of the best advice I've gotten. It's like when you're reading a line, just instantly think like, what is the end goal of me saying this? Like, why am I saying this? And I know that sounds really simple, but it helps a lot, because sometimes you read a line on a page and you say it and it's like you kind of just say it and you're like emulating the emotion that you would imagine someone to have when they're saying that line. Like you get the general gist of it, but if you actually stop and think like, why did I bother saying that as this character? What was the point of me saying that? What was the real reason I said that? I think it opens up like a lot more for your performance. So that's probably the best advice I've had.
Yeah, I mean, it's important as an actor to understand context and the intention of your character because, like you said, anybody can say, I can give you a line and you'd be like, oh, say this line. And you're like, okay, but why? What is the context behind this line? You know, am I angry? Am I happy? Am I trying to be like condescending? Am I trying to be supportive? What's the end goal? What is my character's motivation and what is their goal and how do they go about achieving that goal? Basically.
Hmm. I think I think another one that's kind of a tack on onto that is there's scenarios where you get asked this, right? So it's like, what's your line? It's like I say, get up. It's like why? Because of this X Y Z. Why? You keep asking why or what, right? You keep asking questions, and you might run into a point where you're like, well, I don't know. It doesn't tell me on the script. I kind of have context from like the scene, but I don't know this or that. And there's a because this is all make believe, right? Acting, it's just it's make believe. We're playing pretend. There is a point, I think this will help a lot of newer actors too, especially if you're doing like an audition. Because an audition, you don't really get a lot of context. You just have the lines, and it's like you need to make a decision. Like we need to have a certainty in our voice, and like the way we're performing this. Like why the character's saying it and what's happening around them physically and what's going on. And they might be like, well, I don't know any of that. And then the advice there is like, just make it up. Make it up. Like create a narrative in your head for this character and then just run with it. Like that's one of the biggest things ever too. Is it's like if you need more emotion or energy in a line and you don't really have a lot of motivation as to why you're saying it or how you're saying it, just make it up. Obviously make it up like based on the context of the scene, but like just make it up. It's all make believe. So just to give yourself a reason.
Just headcanon it, bro.
Yeah, basically. Like, I'll give you an example. I when I auditioned for Gobrou and Remonster, there's like a little bit of context for the lines. There's like four lines, right? They're all different scenes, kind of trying to show there, different emotions. There's different range. There's different situations happening in those lines. It doesn't really tell you that these are really different situations happening in these lines. You might be able to glean that from the line itself. Like, oh, he's talking about this towards a group of people. I think he's addressing a group of people, but you don't know for sure. So you just make it up. So there's a line talking about a bear. And so I was like, okay, I imagine I'm like mid fight with this bear. This is my inner monologue and I'm like kind of damaged. And so then you add, like the tired, like, physical affectation, or there's a line where I think he's addressing a group of people. It's like, so I'm going to shout and I'm going to sound like I'm talking out to a crowd of people, and it's more addressing a huge audience as opposed to one person. And those are decisions you make as an actor that might make you stand out because a lot of other people might not read it that way. But it's like makes you stand out because it sounds different, it's unique, but also it sounds immersive because like you just made up the scene in your head and you're just playing along with it. So yeah, that's especially for auditions. That's a huge piece of advice. Just headcanon, bro. Just make it up.
Now, outside of voiceover, what are some of your personal hobbies?
I like playing music, so I play piano and guitar. I do like metal vocals, but that's just like just do it for fun. I don't like playing a band or anything like that. I watch a lot of movies. I draw poorly sometimes. And then I like going to the gym. I like weightlifting and like playing tennis. And then obviously video games. I'm a dude in my 20s, so I play video games. Of course I do. I was on a huge Helldivers 2 kick for a while. And now I'm back playing like Slay the Spire nonstop because I am addicted. But yeah, that's probably the bulk of what I do.
How do you balance your work and personal life?
That is a good question. I'm very bad at it. I don't know. I just try and find like at least a day or 2 days out of the week to just like turn off all the noise and be like, I'm not going to respond to that email. I'm not going to do this, or I'm not available that day, no matter what, and just enjoy myself, like my time with my spouse and everything, and or like disconnect, like go outside, like go for a walk and get some fresh air and some sun. Because I think a lot of my job is microphones and screens and headphones and technology, and it's all inside, and it can get a little, actually, unless you're in studio at Crunchyroll or something, it's usually remote. So honestly, it can get a little lonely sometimes too. So I think just blocking out a day or two to just like ignore all of it and get out of the house is probably the biggest thing. Um, and seeing friends, of course.
Honestly, like, if honestly, like, one of my biggest takeaways from talking to so many voice actors is that it's kind of like a pretty depressing existence when you think about it, because like most of your life is going to be spent like working in either inside a studio or in your own home studio or like a small booth, and it's like it's one of those, you have that realization where it's like I need human contact, otherwise I will go insane.
Yeah, it's like you're in like a little dark rectangle for like the whole day, and uh, and you're like, man, I need to touch grass. I need some sunlight. I'm sad. I feel like I balance it pretty well now. I think there was definitely a 2 year period where I did not, and I was just like indoors all day and just kind of chronically online and stuff. And I think it's gotten better now.
That's good to know. Like, you kind of need to. I feel like, if you're gonna be an actor, you kind of need to find that work-life balance. Otherwise, you're just gonna go insane by just focusing on work constantly.
Hmm. Oh my God,
So
yeah. Well, because your whole job is based on the validation of other people, basically. Um, you know, it's like your whole job, whether you get a paycheck or not, it's because somebody thought you were good enough. So it's uh I really urge people who are like into this and like who are working towards this career. It's like you should be super passionate and you should be giving it your all and super into it. But it's like, don't make it all of you, or you'll probably get in a really dark place, because then your mood is going to be like completely dictated by like how much you're getting booked and how much you're working. And I feel like it's just not productive at all. So, go live life, go hang out with some friends, I mean, screw it, just go outside and catch a movie by yourself. Just like get some experience and go outside and diversify your interests, because that'll also help you in acting. A lot of what helps acting is like lived experience, because it's all wisdom. So, but yeah, it can be kind of sad in that little dark box.
and did speaking of like being in dark boxes, like, do you record stuff from your home studio, or is it just, or is all the work you do in studio?
I record almost everything in my home studio. Yeah, so I got a little home vocal booth that I made myself. That I've slowly upgraded over time, and it is very dark and dank in there. But yeah, I got like Source Connect and all kinds of equipment. I got like a really expensive Neumann microphone, like monitors, keyboard, mouse, like everything just all set up in there. So if I got a bag of potato chips, I could probably live in there for a few days. But yeah, almost all in studio, I think, or sorry, at home. I mean, um, Crunchyroll is in person in the studio, and then I think other than that, I have only ever recorded another voice acting gig in a studio once in like 2020 or like 2019. Um, Everything else I've just done at home, which is nice. It's awesome because you can wear pajamas and then work on something and they'll never know. But uh, I also really like the aspect of driving to a studio and like seeing the director and the engineer in person, and like you feel like more like an actor when you drive to a studio, and you're like, oh, look at me. But almost everything's from home.
And have you gotten a chance to meet any of your other fellow castmates, or have you just not gotten the chance to run into anybody at Crunchyroll?
Oh yeah, I've met a ton of people. Um, like Landon McDonald, super awesome. We were just recently in Twilight Out of Focus together. Um, I've met like Alejandra Saab and like Rico Fajardo. I walked past Chris Sabat once, and I was too nervous to say hi because I didn't want to bother him. um, A lot of people. Uh, I'm trying to think of everybody, like Colin Clinkenbeard from One Piece. She plays Luffy. Like tons of people. Yeah, and it's weird because it's like a lot of them I used to listen to before I even did this, and they were like huge icons to me and inspirations. And now I see them and I go, "What's up, Sean?" And they treat me like their peer, which I guess I am. Like we're working on the same stuff in a way, in a similar capacity, and it's like we're both at the studio. We're both working actors, so it's not like they're gonna look at like I'm not below them or anything. But to me, I'm like, dude, you're like such a star. And then they just waved to me like they're a coworker. So that was pretty surreal when I first started. But I've always tried to not be like too starstruck. Generally, like I think it's really important to just realize like we're just people, and it's just it's just a weird, unique job. It's not like we're not gods or anything. It's not that big of a deal. So, but it is really cool. It's been really cool to meet some of these people that I really, really look up to.
I still can't get over the fact that, Aaron Dismuke being like a regular voice actor because I, as someone who grew up with the like Full Metal Alchemist dub, I'm like, I remember you when you were a kid.
Yeah, now you know, he's like a total hunk.
He is tall, by the way. Like I've seen footage of him in conventions. I'm like, man, he's a tall dude.
How tall is he? I want to give him some run for his money. I'm a pretty tall dude. I don't know if you knew this. I am 6'5", so I'm a big boy. I'm gonna fact check right now. How tall is Aaron Dismuke? Let me see. Where are you? Does it say 6'3"? Ha! Got him.
And now I just want to know, like, have you ever like, hit your head on the mic stand trying to hit?
Dude, yes. Literally, yes. I've bumped my head so many times in my life. It's not even funny.
It's like, how do you even accommodate to that? It's like, oh, we got Sean coming in. Oh, how tall is he? Oh, it's fine, it's fine. It can hold, it can hold. And then you just walk in and it's like clunk.
There's been numerous times where, almost every time, yeah, I walk in and they have to raise the mic stand to like almost the max height, if not the max height. And they're like, "Oh, sorry, the monitors. This is as high up as the monitors can go." I'm like, "That's fine. I'll figure it out."
Oh, and you also got to make sure that you're close enough to the mic to so it can pick up everything. That's also a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as someone who has recorded a lot of podcasts, I cannot tell you that it's one of the most annoying things ever, realizing that you recorded something and it sounds weird and it's like, "Oh yeah, because the mic was not close to me." Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Thankfully, I feel like I've done this long enough to where it's like muscle memory, like to always just make sure you're somewhat facing the microphone, like staging in front of the mic and stuff like that. I've definitely had some early sessions with some other stuff where it's like the director's like, "Hey, can you make sure you actually stay on the mic?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's okay, okay, yeah, sorry."
And anyway, before we wrap this up, can you give us an update on what you're currently working on and where can people find you online?
Yeah, so I play right now Skullion in Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest, Kirito Kujo in Twilight Out of Focus, Bennett in a show called Bye Bye Earth. I'm sure I might be missing something, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. And you can find me on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Instagram, and Facebook maybe every 3 blue moons. If you just look up Letourneau VA, which I know is a doozy to spell. So just probably look at maybe the title of this podcast and that'll help you spell my insane last name. But yeah, Letourneau VA is where people can find me.
All right, thank you so much for taking the time off to do this. This has been a wonderful conversation, and if you ever want to come back, you know where to find me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This was awesome. It was a great chat. I thank you for having me on. This is great. Like some of the best questions and conversations I've had in this format, like ever. So it was super cool. I appreciate you.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
You too, brother. Take it easy.